So you and I are going to go over 5 more things I wish I would have known about vampiric powers. About a week ago, I created a video and that had things that was kind of like the first experience with vampiric powers, what I was kind of missing out on, which what I would like to have known already. And it wasn't always very clear in the game. There's some stuff obvious to people, or maybe you read the small print. I can't say that I did that. But now, as I've played through the game, there is actually a few things that I'd like to let you guys know about that were even more useful as we continue on. And so anybody who did miss that video, I'll go through and do a quick summary just of what was in that so you guys don't have to go find that video or anything. But it's very basic. It was basically you can use vampiric powers early. They are located, if you're in your bag, they are located here on this little tab. You are going to gamble for them if that was an option down here. I'm already at full power. So you can gamble for them. It gives you 3 options. You pick one. Sometimes those options include an upgrade on something you already have. And then the last thing was just to kind of pay attention to these as they fit in with each other, or they fit in with your build as a whole. So that was the summary of the video, but let's get into the 5 things now that I wish additionally that I would have known about vampiric powers, because there is just a crazy amount of power in these 5 abilities that just makes your endgame build so crazy. It's, I don't know, just a whole new level on a lot of the builds. And if we know some of the key things, we can actually make sure that we're getting the most out of them. So something that's probably not always clear to people, there is it's 3 areas, but the 3 areas are basically open up as you progress the storyline. So if you finish the season storyline, they'll open the ability to gamble for the whites here, the blues, and the yellows. So just as you complete through. So if you're noticing you're not getting any of the yellows or any of the blues, you may just be early in the game. Just keep playing through the storyline. Eventually you'll be able to actually get those. So now the yellows are the most powerful, the blues second, whatever, but they also create more cost. So as you move up the ranks, there's going to be, you have the whites that usually cost about 1 pack of some side or 2 in some cases. The blues are usually 2 or 3. And then these bottom yellow ones are almost always 6. So when you are at max, you have the ability to have, I think 20 packs total. So if all the armor pieces, if we're looking over here, if these are maxed out, which they are, we can actually count that right now. So it's 10, 13, 17, 20. Yeah, so exactly 20. So I can't run, and this is an important thing to understand, I can't run all yellows. So I would have run out of points. I'd be at about 30 points to run 5 at 6 a piece. So we have to do a mix of each. And if we want to maximize, if we want the most amount of power, which I do recommend, I've looked at some builds and I thought about like having fewer powers and just stronger ones. But that didn't work out as well as I'd like it to. I think it just leaves up some open holes versus having all the abilities. Because obviously we could easily do like 3 yellows and a blue, right? So that's what you want to look at is what are the core ones. I do think that the yellows are more powerful than the rest. They do a good job of that. And so looking at the ones, picking your yellows, I recommend kind of selecting 2 yellows, then picking blues and whites that fill the rest of the points that you have available. So that will probably give you the most power you can have, and make sure you have all 5 powers going so that you have a good spread. Now, the thing I did mention briefly is the active versus inactive. If you switch out your gear and the packs change, this just shows you quickly what's inactive and what's active. So if I made a mistake and suddenly don't feel as powerful, sometimes I'd come in here and find that 3 were inactive because, well, I wanted to put on whatever I wanted and didn't want to worry about the packs, or I ran out of materials to actually affect the packs. So obviously they'll tell you here, and then they'll tell you what you're missing up top. That's easy peasy. And then what you have available. I wish they let you do the part where you can actually modify those right here, because it would make a lot of sense, but they don't. You got to go back to equipment. These are your tools. These obviously will brand it with the individual packs that you need, and this will clear it in case you just need to get a blank space and start putting these on. By endgame, you have a ton of these. You do not have to worry about this very much. You will have all the resources you need, and you'll start actually getting to a place where your build is pretty set. Which reminds me of the next thing. When you're leveling these up, it's not too hard actually before you get deep into endgame that you have these completely maxed. It was not a hard challenge to do. So early on, though, knowing which abilities you actually want to focus on, which ones are going to be a primary, are going to help you get those to max power right away. Just through gambling, if you know that's what you're going to pick up, even if you're not equipping that right now, grabbing the items that you know you're eventually going to equip and kind of get a feel for that. How are you going to spend your 20 packs? And that way, when you're gambling, you can actually make sure that you level up the ones that matter first. And you may do it what I have equipped right now, what a couple that I think I'm going to equip later, as my build comes online, and then the rest. So one thing I didn't know, there is a cap, and I'm sure it tells me somewhere, but it didn't. I didn't read it. So these do cap out at level 3. And to level 3, to go from 1 to 2, so when you first gamble and you open them up, you then gamble more. You have to get 5 points in to get to level 2, and then 10 points to get it to level 3. Once you're at level 3, you're at max, and it'll stop showing up in the gamble because you got everything you need. And then it'll just kind of force the other ones. For a while, I thought it was being weighted in some weird way, like the ones I needed that were equipped. I just felt like, why do they keep giving me these? I never get any of the ones and then I noticed that all of them were maxed. If you floated over them, they're level 3. And then when this finally hit up, it was very clear to me. So does that mean that at that point, the potent bloods that were useful this entire time and even important are completely useless? For this class, for this character, yes. Or for this character, yes, because you have everything you need. All these abilities are filled. But when you start an alt, one of the cool things is those do all carry over. So I can just go grind out whatever I know I need for my my potent bloods before I actually go to my alt character, and then I'll be able to max them out. So let me go ahead and jump over there and just show that really quick. Okay, so here we are back on an alternate character. I actually just created one and loaded it up. One thing to note, it's pretty obvious if you're going through the storyline, it kind of tells you like what's going on. But the vampiric powers, you have to finish the first 2 or 3 little quest sections, and then they'll open up. And so once that happens, then you have access to it. But down here, I already had potent bloods already ready. So now I can just immediately come in here. If I had moved this up, if I think it's closer to like 9,000, would get you to the total needed. Other than unlocking it through finishing up some of the storyline, I could pretty much just hit this and max all my whites as soon as blue, max all my blues, and so on and so forth. So obviously the best place to get the potent bloods is going to be Blood Harvest. They are an absolute incredible add to this season. I think they just made the beginning game and a lot of the leveling so much better. If you want to check out my full guide on Blood Harvest, just watch this video right here.